Today we're doing the fifth set of notes and we're going to be focusing on solving by factoring. So one of the things that I want you to jot down, and I'm actually going to go back a page, is that today we always need to get our problems in standard form. So standard form will look like ax squared plus bx plus c. And the important part is that we're always getting these equations equal to 0. So jot that down at the top of your notes. So for letter A, with that in mind, that I always need to get these equations equal to 0, we're going to start by subtracting 3 from both sides. When I do that, I get 5x squared plus 6x plus 1 equal to 0. And now I'm going to factor because it's now in standard form, and that's the only way I can solve. And remember, we always multiply a times c, which is 5. The combination that I would want to use for factoring is a 5 and a 1. So I'm going to write my 5 terms of 5x squared plus 5x plus 1x plus 1 equal to 0. Those of you who do the box method, you're going to put these 4 terms in the box and you find the outside. I'm going to do it the grouping way this time. So for those of you who group, the first quantity I can take out of 5x. And when I do that, I'm left with x plus 1. The second quantity I can take out a positive 1, and I'm left with an x plus 1. So it factors to be 5x plus 1 and an x plus 1. And I hope those of you who did the box method, when you found the outside of your box, you get these same 2 binomials. So the only new part, again, we kind of talked about this in the last set of note, is that whenever there's an equal sign, and the directions say solve, or find the x-intercepts, or find the zeros, any of that lingo, that means you need to set your binomials equal to 0. So I'm going to say 5x plus 1 equals 0, and x plus 1 equals 0. And now I just solve for x. So this one, I get x equals negative 1. And this one over here, I'll subtract 1 to start. I'm going to come up here because I'm running out of room. I'll get 5x equals negative 1. We divide both sides by 5, and the second answer I get, I'll write up here, is negative 1/5. And you might be able to do that last step in your head, so if you can, feel free. If not, write it out. Alright, so letter B, again, we need to get this equal to 0, so the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 9x. Be strategic when you do subtract it over. It's a B term, so place it in the middle. So 10x squared minus 9x minus 9. That way you don't have to write more. So I'm going to do a times c, which is negative 90. My apologies, it appears I was paused that whole time while I went over that. So hopefully you can just pause the video and kind of look to see what I did as far as the factoring and the solving part. We have been factoring for a few days now, so hopefully you can make sense of that. So now we're going to move on to letter C. Again, I always prefer my A value to be positive, so I am going to take all these terms and move them to the left side. So that means I'm going to add that 21x over. Again, be strategic, that's my B term, so I'm going to place it in the middle. So all 3 of these terms are going to be canceling, and my new equation is going to become a 5x squared plus 21x minus 20, and it's equal to 0. And I'm going to do a times c, which is negative 100, and the combination I want to use would be a 25 and a negative 4. So I'm again going to do the box method since last time I was not recording the whole time I was explaining it. So these are your 4 terms. Again, those of you who do the grouping method, same exact 4 terms that you would be writing. You're just going to group the first 2 and group the second 2. All right, so let's try this again. Looking at that top quantity, I have a 5x squared and a 25x. So I can take out a 5x. Looking there, 5x squared and a negative 4x, I can take out an x. Looking down here, I have a negative 4x and a negative 20, so I can take out a negative 4. And then comparing those 2 areas, 25x and a negative 20, I can take out a 5. So I get 5x minus 4 and an x plus 5. But again, we have to set these both equal to 0. So for this first one, I would subtract 5. So I get x equals negative 5. The other one, I have 5x minus 4 equals 0. My first move would be to add that 4 over. So I get 5x equals 4. And then we divide both sides by 5. So my second answer is 4/5. And again, if you feel like you can do that last step in your head, feel free to. All right, so letter C or letter D would be the quote-unquote most challenging one on the page, but I think you guys can handle it. So first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this x minus 1, this quantity squared, and we're going to pull this off to the side, and we're going to write it twice. So whatever method you do, whether it be FOIL or box, just hit pause on the video and go ahead and take a moment and multiply that quantity out, and once you have the answer, unpause. So the answer that I just put in the parentheses is the answer that I would have gotten from foiling or boxing. If you box, you put them on the outside. And now we're going to finish the problem up from here. So before I start moving terms side to side, we're going to look on the right-hand side. And you should notice I have a negative 2x and a positive 2x. So after that, now I can get into the solving groove. So again, I want my a to be positive, so I'm going to subtract x squared over, and I'm going to subtract that 1 over. And when I do that, I get x squared minus 2x minus 8 is equal to 0. And again, we do a times c, so the combination is negative 8, or the number that is negative 8. And the combination we need to use is a negative 4 and a positive 2, because that's what multiplies to be negative 8 and adds to be negative 2. And I'm going to write my 4 terms out. I'm just already adding the grouping there. You can always add that at the tail end of things. And now I'm going to factor. So that first term I can take an x out. When I do, I'm left with x minus 4. The second quantity, I can take a 2 out. I'm left with x minus 4. So it factors to be x plus 2 and an x minus 4. Again, if you chose to do the box method, these were the 4 terms that you should have put in your box and you found the outside. And when I solve, so this answer will give me negative 2, and that answer will give me a positive 4 if I set them both equal to 0. So go ahead and flip the page. You now have 4 practice problems to try. So see how you do with those. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is solving systems of equations, which is something that we did in the beginning of the year. We're going to use what we call the substitution method because notice both of these equations have a y. So I'm going to replace them with what they're equal to. So I'm going to say x squared equals a 3x squared plus x minus 6. And now I want to solve, and because it's squared, that means my options are factoring. I would like to get it equal to 0 and also keeping a positive, so we're going to move to the right. So I get 2x squared plus x minus 6. And now we do a times c, which is a negative 12. And we need to find something that multiplies to be negative 12 and adds to be 1. So my combination is a 4 and a negative 3. So I'll do the box this time. Again, I'll try and alternate it. So I have a 2x squared, a 4x, a negative 3x, and a negative 6. And now you find the outside. So that top row, 2x squared and a 4x, has a 2x in common. 2x squared and a negative 3 has an x in common. Negative 3x and negative 6 has a negative 3 in common. And that 4x and negative 6 has a 2 in common. So this factors to be 2x minus 3 and x plus 2. And again, I need to set these both equal to 0 in order to solve because there is an equal sign in the problem. That's your indicator that you're solving. So this first one, when I set this equal to 0, I will add the 3 over, and then I divide both sides by 2. So I get 3 over 2. And this one, I will subtract 2, so I get the answer of negative 2. But because this is a system of equations, I want to know the points where they intersect. So finding x is not sufficient enough. So you're going to write two coordinate pairs, and your coordinate pairs are going to be the two x values that you started with, and your job is to find the y values. You have two equations to choose from. You can either use this equation up here, or you can use that bottom equation down there. I'm going to go with, let's use the top one because that's a lot less writing to do. So I need to plug in -2, so this would be a -2 squared. I'll change my pen color. So a -2 squared gives me 4, so that answer is going to be 4. And now I'm going to plug in my 3/2. And when I square 3/2, I get 9/4. So that would be the points of intersections. Again, same idea for letter B, so we're going to set them equal. So I have x squared minus 2 and a 3x squared minus x minus 8. I need to get this equal to 0, so I'm going to subtract the x squared over, and I'm going to add the 2 over. So when I do that, I get 0 equals 2x squared minus x minus 6. Again, a times c is -12. This time our combination is a -4 and a +3. All right, so we have 2x squared minus 4x plus 3x and a -6. So I'm going to do grouping this way this time. If you do the box, go ahead and put those 4 terms in the box. So for my groupers, that first term I can take out a 2x, and when I do, I'm left with x minus 2. Second quantity, I'll take out a 3, so I'm left with an x minus 2. And I get 2x plus 3 and an x minus 2. And again, in order to finish this problem, I need to set both binomials equal to 0. So I'm just going to skip to the step of writing that x equals -3/2 and x equals a +2. And again, I'm going to write these in the coordinates because I have one more step to do from here. So now I need to substitute them in. I'm going to erase some of this work over here so I have more space to substitute them in. So to substitute those values in, I need to pick one of the equations to plug it into. Again, I'm going to say the top one is probably easier to do. So to substitute this in, let's do the 2 first. I'll have 2 squared minus 2. 2 squared is 4, minus 2 is 2. So when x is 2, y is 2. Now I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm plugging in a -3/2. 3/2 squared will become 9/4 minus 2. You can either get common denominators or put it as a decimal. So common denominators, I'm going to multiply top and bottom by 4. So I'll have 9/4 minus 8/4, which is 1/4. And again, feel free, you could have put that as a decimal as well. And I think we have one more to go over. So notice they took away the y equals. Same idea though, I have f and a g. My first move is to set these two equal if I'm trying to find where they intersect. And I want to keep my a value positive, so I'm going to move these terms to the left side, sorry. And I'll subtract that 6. Okay, so my equation is now x squared plus 2x minus 3. And now we're going to factor. So I do a times c, which is a -3. My combination is a 3 and a -1. I'll go back to the box method this time to keep it fair. So I have x squared, a 3x, and a -1x, -3 in that bottom. And now I find the outside. So I'll have x and an x. Bottom left, I'll get a -1. And top right, I'll get a +3. And x plus 3. But again, we're setting these both equal to 0, so the two answers I get are 1 and a -3. And now your last job is to plug both of these values in to the equation.